Hello. Um, Trying to get Victor on here. We are going to be having a discussion this evening about energy work and using energy work to. Here we go. I'm going to add him right now. All right. I don't
I
know.
knew you would figure it out.
It makes no sense why it wouldn't work the other way, but it's okay. Here we are.
It's all good. We can still communicate. We can still chop it up.
Definitely.
So, Danika, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. I got tons of questions. So I'm just gonna get right into it.
Okay.
There's so many things that fascinate.
Let's tell my viewers just the background. Or I mean, we posted the
Yeah,
thing. So we're just gonna have Victor and I are just gonna have a discussion about energy work and using energy work as a tool to navigate times like we're in and all times. What it's about. And how it really works on a fundamental level. That's my line of work. So that's what we're here to do. And then I pass the floor to you.
thank you. I
Mm-hmm.
got the baton. I got the
You
mic.
got it. It's done.
But we're gonna pass it back and forth.
Okay.
So Danika, there's a lot of things about you that really fascinate me, as far as like just who you are as a person, the things that you're passionate about, the work that you do. I tell you that all the time. I'm not
Thank
telling
you.
you nothing new, just for the
It's true.
audience. Um, but just give me a little bit more context to what's going on right now. How did you become as an individual just so passionate about equality for all people? Because I know you see
Hmm.
color, you love color, you don't judge people for their color, you empower people. How did you develop a heart for all of that, and where did that come from?
Good question. This is the first time I've been asked this question, and I really do feel like I have a different perspective because, in full transparency, I feel like much of my upbringing was in the Black community.
Yeah,
I was often the white girl in any circumstance. Most of my friend group has always been the Black community. Um, so it's less about on looking into a community that I feel separate from and more of like, this is my family. So
yeah,
it's personal for me, and I think in a different way than other, non people of color, non Black people, because it's not just to me like a larger issue that I recognize as a problem. It's like this is affecting my family, and when you're in the community, albeit not of the same, you see it
mhm,
over and over and over and over again, and you feel the pain over and over and over again. And while it's obviously not my direct and personal pain, and I think that that's what's happening right now on a larger scale is finally people are personalizing this pain because it's painful,
yeah, yeah,
and you can't really see it with true eyes and not be pained by it. That's just the truth. So
hmm,
to be in and around it often and to feel personally affected by it, brings me into just a different stance about it. Where it's not like, let's all, I feel like we should all come together and like help these people. It's like, these are my people. And so now I have an
yeah,
obligation because this is what raised me, really. This is where I come from.
yeah.
And so it's personal.
I think that's usually where you see activism take place, whether it be for like a fight against Parkinson's or cancer, or usually don't become an advocate or fight for something until it personally
Totally.
hits you, you know?
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
even though you're not Black, you felt like this is a personal attack against your community in general, just because of how you were raised in general.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
and the people that you love. I mean, when you speak about even before a lot of this more recent racial tension became really the on the mainstream media with George Floyd. Prior to that, like you and I would have conversations about Black people, and you would speak about Black people in such an elevated way that I've never heard people who aren't Black talk about. Like, where does that come from?
I mean, I think to me, in full transparency, there, it's just a spiritual connection to feeling like I can see the truth of Black people. And to me, if you're trying to quiet someone's power, it's because you recognize that they have power. Um,
Yeah.
and 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 I mean, in my belief system, the original people were Black, and that we're all of a Black man and woman,
Mm-hmm.
and that the Black woman is the closest thing to God, if you want to say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't go from white to melanin, right? You can only go from melanin down. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and I think it's safe to say that the original people were people of color. So the irony then that we have the separation from self, and that's when I've talked about more recently in my posts about what's happening. It's a separation from self when you're projecting onto someone else your separateness from them. And the quickest thing you can see is what color is their skin. Boom, I'm going to ping that and I'm going to go off of that. And
Yeah.
particularly when the color of their skin is powerful in a way that makes you feel inferior. So you're going to
Mm.
project that inferiority onto them as a way to belittle them, to make you bigger because you feel smaller. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah. See, and that's what I was getting to without you actually saying it. You really believe that the origin of all humans are those people are people of color. So there we go. That's one thing. Another thing too is that when you look at people who are of color, or whether it be Mexicans or particularly blacks, so that's what we're talking about right now. You don't look at them and fear them. You look at them and are actually in awe of their history and what you see in them. Talk about that, like how you just view black people differently. And I'm not just talking about black men. You mentioned black women. Um, most white people look at somebody like myself and they instantly think fear, but you think you're like in awe of black people in general. Like,
Yeah,
talk
I
about
mean,
that.
I think family, you know, that's it's
Yeah.
again, that's it was not in again in full transparency in my teenage and college years. I was often the only white person in a room, or maybe me and a couple of others, right? So that I'm honestly have been more comfortable in situations where I'm one of few white people. Like that just
Yeah.
feels that's my vibe now. That's like how I resonate. That's my frequency.
Mm.
So now it's not, I mean, it's just like it's family to me. That energy is family. I know, I'm very familiar with that energy. I've been in the energy. I recognize it, and I recognize it for what it is, which is
Mm-hmm.
soulfulness and you know, spiritedness and
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, and all of these ways that I think that the horrifying backstory to how Black people came to be in America and the tools that they needed to survive have cultivated them in a way that they're even more powerful right now than ever. And
Wow.
you know, necessarily so, right? Because they absolutely had to, in order to survive, they had to cultivate these other tools as survival tools. So now
Yeah.
imagine there's that deep root, and now society's like, yeah, we should probably help them out, we should probably lift them up. Now we've done enough damage, and now
Mm-hmm.
we have an obligation, call it reparation, just in a human sense, to help people, help, you know, the Black community have a step
Yeah.
up. Like now it's on us now, the
Yeah.
non-Black community.
Awesome. Well, I see you, and I give you your props. Seriously, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But like I say, even prior to this being the main focus of the news and the main subject of people's mouths, you've always been an advocate for elevating blacks, and I appreciate that a lot. It doesn't just happen that what we're seeing the black suppression, not just in the United States, though that's where we live. I mean, you're seeing it in the UK. You literally see it everywhere.
Totally.
I'm Hispanic, and I see it even in Hispanic cultures where darker skinned Hispanics are looked at as less than.
Mm-hmm.
We see it even in Africa itself. I mean, where there's white Africans that
Mm-hmm.
look at the darker Africans as less than. So we see it all over the place.
True.
And that's something about you that I know you're aware of is just the global consciousness and what's going on globally with energy and spirit. And what do you, even though you're here fighting the battle in Southern California, what do you feel is going on globally right now that we just are a part of right here locally in Southern California?
To me, it's a shift in consciousness, because it takes the majority consciousness to really have an effect. And as soon as the
Yeah.
majority consciousness, in fact, there's a movie called I Am, and it was one of the movies that really kind of stimulated my personal awakening. And he talks about how when deers move in packs, you know, there could be hundreds of deers, and it's literally just a thread of consciousness that starts to pass through. So one deer has a thought like, we should go to the water hole. And then it takes like, you know, 10 deers kind of telepathically essentially receive that communication. So they're thinking the same thing. As soon as the 51st percentile of deer have that thread of consciousness pass through, they start moving in that direction, right? So I think that that's finally what has happened now is the majority of people now say something is very wrong, and now
Yeah.
we're going to actually like collectively take a stand against it and
Mhm.
simultaneously work the solution. So I think it just has been happening, of course, and there's been enough movements and there's been enough wave, but this one is different. I mean, there's absolutely no
Yeah.
question. This is the largest one ever.
Yeah.
And what is that? But just mass consciousness, mass awakening, saying this is absolutely a problem. We can't deny that anymore. And we're actually going to do something we're going to put the pressure on so that something is done.
Yeah, no, it definitely is happening universally in mass. It's just it's beautiful. It's so exciting for
So
me to see.
beautiful.
It's exciting, and then at the same time too, throughout this time period, like I've been drained and exhausted.
Yeah.
So one of the beautiful things though about this movement, like we're talking about, this is global. It's gonna happen whether I participate in it or not, or
True.
whether I take a break or not and get
Yeah.
back in. Like I can't be so arrogant to think that I'm the savior. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, this is happening. So I can actually just chill for a minute, recuperate, and
Mm-hmm.
then get back in the fight, which
Absolutely.
is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm going through highs and lows of exhaustion, and my energy feeling depleted. Like, what are some of the things that you do to help people just refill their energy again? Tell us about your work and all of that.
Yeah, that is exactly my work. And I want to normalize your experience by just saying that I think all of us are feeling that. And what we will all do, I think, soon enough is recalibrate into recognizing this is a marathon. So, because it's like, oh my God, it's happening. Let's go
Yeah,
fight.
yeah,
We're going in. And it's
yeah.
good because that energy in quantum physics is what's called a quantum event. So it puts the momentum out into the universe for change to occur more rapidly. So it was healthy energetically that happened at first. But now we all
Mhm.
have to recognize that now we got to sit into the seat and saddle up and hold this stance forever. And I think
Right.
that's where we're just kind of getting into because people are starting to kind of slowly come down from that initial like revolt.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go away. Like, it's not going to go away this time. We're all like, we're ready for change and we're demanding change, and we're going to use all the tools that we have, including social media, to create
Mhm.
sustainable change.
Yeah.
So then on an individual level, this is the conversation of energy work. And people, energy work is still such a misunderstood, I think, topic, or just not well understood. But it
Mhm.
has been in particular Eastern medicine for a very long time. Many people know more about, say, acupuncture than Reiki or energy work.
Yeah.
And they're very similar, right? Because with acupuncture, say you go and you sit down, they put needles on your skin, and it's not that the needles themselves are actually healing you, right? It's that the needles are activating the body's own capacity to heal itself. They're basically calling to arms that little place in your body where there's a problem and the body has not yet activated its own healing capacity. So it's saying, come
Wow.
here, check this out. Let's get the energy running. And so and the other part of that is it's all, the energy moves in various ways throughout the body. The primary energy channels of the body are the meridians, which you can kind of consider energy veins, and then the chakras, which are like the energy centers of the body.
Mhm.
So even when you're say you come in with something wrong with your liver and you're doing an acupuncture session, it's not even necessarily that they'll put the needles on the liver. They would probably redirect the energy that moves into the liver, which is a meridian that runs through the arm and down. So that's acupuncture, and we're talking the same thing when we're saying energy work, except this is the needles. My hands are the needles, right? And I am
Right.
using my intention and my energy as having something I have crafted over time to help your energy recalibrate, reset, recreate, and then re-advocate for itself in its own capacity to heal itself. So you always hear healers say, right, it's not like the healer is necessarily healing you. I'm giving you the
Mhm.
container for your body's capacity to remember how to heal itself. And so then you take a step back from that and you look at what we are experiencing as a collective, and actually have been experiencing most of this year, which is on some level a trauma. I mean,
Yeah.
even the virus, right? It was a trauma because everybody's world was just completely rocked, and nobody
Yeah.
had any certainty. There was like no clarity. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what to do, and
We
it's
still don't
traumatic.
know.
We just don't know. We definitely don't know. We just know we're going to protest. That's
Yeah.
it. um, but it's traumatic. It's traumatic for the
Yeah.
system when we are habitual creatures, to be kind of do, and then suddenly it's like you just hit a brick wall, a storm passes through, and nobody is like, everything is just completely, awry. So not only did we start this year with a pretty traumatizing event, now we're even more, we're actually in the ancestral trauma of what we've been experiencing as a collective, whether or not you're just having chosen to see that it was there before now or not, right? It's there, period. So it is like a trauma that's being released from the root of humanity. Racism is the deepest, one of the deepest, if not the deepest, trauma bond that humans have with one another and through our ancestors. And so it's
Yeah.
being uprooted. And you know, in the spiritual context, we talk about times like this as the dark night of the soul, wherein you're just kind of facing your rock bottom, if you will. Same kind of concept, where you've hit a place where it just feels like you could not get any lower.
Yeah.
And I think that this year has been that for us. But the beautiful part about that is that you have to have those, right? It's all part of the, I say, divine design, wherein you can know yourself better and recreate yourself having known the bottom of what you have the capacity to survive.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going through that. And so now the next question is, how do we recalibrate ourselves energetically to be more empowered, even stronger, even better, while still, you know, riding out this marathon, while still fighting our fight, but also, you know, move the conversation towards solution, which is, you know, in particular Black empowerment, but, you know, all people empowerment, but also heal your shit empowerment, right? So it's like this multiple level of like, clear out
Yeah.
your issue so that you can be more completely who you are without this bondage of, you know, the human mind that wants to create separation.
Well, with that, because you're mentioning some amazing things, and one of the things I want to talk about. I mean, first of all, you did say that energy work is still misunderstood for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Here, like we live in the United States, there's still most people say that they're Christian. Even on my post, I mean, my dad was just like, "I can't believe you're having this witch on," you know, like
Oh,
my dad. I mean,
hi,
don't be
Dad.
offended, sorry.
So good.
You probably won't watch it anyway because you're a witch.
Okay.
But
Either way.
so it's still misunderstood. People are it seems very mystic. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, you're not touching anybody. You're just using your hands. There's no machine or device. At least acupuncture, you can see these things and you leave with
Right.
cupping marks. You know. So it's very hard to explain. Even though we have people talking about quantum physics, you know, and we
Right.
can see these things, but that still is kind of like it's so little of the population is actually on that is joining that conversation, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
But how do you break it down even to, like, let's say for instance, I told my daughter, she's 12 years old, she's like, okay, Poppy, who are you going to have on your podcast this week? And I said, oh, I'm about to have a really dope energy worker. Like, how do you explain energy to on that elementary level? Because you know, Danika, we got dumbify everything now.
Yeah.
Like,
Completely.
how do you explain just to on a second grade, third grade level what energy work is?
Yeah.
Make it that
Um,
simple.
I mean, the premise of it is feeling good in your body, right? And you just want to, we all, and we think of that, well, what we're recreating that as what is happiness, right? Because so for so long we thought happiness is out there. If I get this, I get that, I get that, I get that, I'm
Yeah.
going to be happy, right? But in fact, all of those things that you think that are going to bring you happiness only help you remember that happiness that is already possible within you. We've just hinged it out
Yep.
there when in fact it's a feeling inside of you. So on a fundamental level, happiness comes from the inside. And then you start to look at that. Okay, well then how do we get there? What do we do with that? Right? Well, yeah, you start to eat better and you treat your body better and you take better care of yourself. And then you start to look at that before all of that is how you feel. And what is a feel but it's energy, right? Emotion, energy, and motion. It's
Mm-hmm.
how you feel inside out. And so that's the conversation of then, well, then if that's the case, then how do we start to work with that? How do we make it so that that feels good? So that way
Yeah.
you feel good from the inside out. And then you can get to be happy because you've cleared
Mm-hmm.
yourself out and you're not attached to what's out there because your happiness has nothing to do with what's happening out there. Your happiness and the feel good has to do with the frequency, the energy that's coming through you.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, remember you were talking about the 2020. Like 2020 has rocked so
Mm,
many. It's touched everybody's life,
everybody.
whether you got the COVID virus or not. I mean, we started off this year. It was cool. I mean, from a football standpoint, my Chiefs won. I was super excited. I was out in Miami. This was February 4th. Had no idea. I mean, I was
No
in South
idea.
Beach turning up, you know. And
Nice.
then literally 3 weeks later, we're hit with COVID. I mean, first I think was Kobe Bryant's death. Just
Mm,
hit everybody, you know. Then after that, we had COVID. So Kobe's death, COVID financially putting people in ruin. You know, relationships now. I mean, I've read this incredible article about how relationships have changed completely because of quarantine.
I believe it.
People who had like secret relationships with their mistresses and stuff, that's not going on no more. And
Yeah.
they're stuck with being with somebody that they don't want to be with.
Mm.
Divorces went on the rise after China got out of their quarantine. You
Yeah.
know, so we're put in a lot of situations where we don't feel good. We don't like what's going on.
Hmm.
But you're saying that you can still maintain your energy, feeling good, and those emotions of good feelings despite all of that. How is
Absolutely.
that possible?
It's and so that's what I describe, and this is and so in resonating with your experience about kind of there this being their high and the low, my go-to when I go through that, and which I have also, it's not like you don't ever arrive at happiness, or you don't ever it's a daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about energy, but it's also about what your mind is doing. So that's why meditation comes in, and it's also about what you're feeding yourself, and that's beyond food. um, and so um, you start to nourish your temple in a different kind of way, and take care of yourself in a different kind of way, and honor yourself in a different kind of way, and show up for yourself in a different kind of way,
Yeah.
which then in turn stabilizes you in your capacity to know neutral. And neutral actually is a frequency that you want to be at. It feels good, right? So either way, even when there's a high, you come back down to neutral, or if there's a low, you know how to get back to neutral. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's been about when I feel the lows, and when I've felt the traumatic experience of what's been happening, I recalibrate with energy work. I tap out of social media. I give myself the space, and I get into my meditation. I get into my spiritual practices. I use my tools. I'm one who chants. And
Mm-hmm.
so I now is the time, especially with anybody who has any sort of spiritual, metaphysical, whatever you want to call them, tools. This is when you use them, right? Because we have this tendency to use things like that, like energy work, like meditation, when things are feeling good. And so it's like icing to the cake. But it's like
Yeah.
now is when you show up for yourself in that way, because you have your toolbox of things that's going to help you get back to neutral. And then if you're just at least at neutral, then you're straight and you're good either way. And that's not to
Yeah.
say that you're like, and neutral is not neutral to what's happening. It's neutral to your experience of it. Because it's not to say like, oh, you're neutral, so then yeah, let's just stay here and let's light and love everybody and it's going to be all
Yeah.
right. It's like you just know your home frequency, and you know how to
Mm-hmm.
get back there, and then you act in your humanness from your home frequency. And that's when we start to
Yeah.
talk about being a sovereign being, is how to get back to your home frequency and then act from that place instead of react from what's happening outside of you.
That's dope. So every individual is different. Obviously, you know me. You know the things that help boost my energy. I mean, you could
Hmm.
just list it off. I mean,
Yeah.
music is one of them. I
Yeah.
mean, outdoors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Scotty had a good question, and it's a question that may be unique to him, and his answer may be different than it would be for me. Um, let's see. I said Scott. It's true, man. On here, I've known the dude for a long time. But it says, what would you say is the most important step to clearing the path to clear thinking? And is that part of the coaching that you provide? And like, go ahead. Give me your thought.
Absolutely. And my answer, and this is my answer, if anybody were to say, give me some advice in life, meditation. 100% it's meditation, because the mind is such a powerful force and we have no idea how to work that yet. And meditation trains the mind to work in your favor instead of against you. Because right now, most people just spin wheels most of the day, and
Yeah.
their mind is actually working against them. And we don't even realize it. And it's creating this whole false reality, because it's a storyline that's like flares up with egoic tendencies and other ways of being that are generally not helpful. But it's fun. It's like the circus. The mind is just this
Yeah.
playhouse. So once you
Mm-hmm.
once you learn how to work that in your favor and train the mind to even think less, right? Because the average person has something like 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize that, right? We go through the motion of like taking a shower, and you don't even realize that you've just taken a shower because you were so busy like thinking about things. That's how
Yeah.
powerful the mind is. So imagine
Mm-hmm.
using that power to your advantage, the advantage of the collective, and that's
Yeah.
how change happens. So to work on yourself and to try to get into this practice in yourself, absolutely, it's meditation. 100%. And the truth is, whenever you're meditating, you're doing your own energy work, because when you sit in stillness, what comes up is sometimes the things that are uncomfortable, or the things that are ready to
Yeah.
come out. And that right there is exactly energy work. It's the memories, it's the people, It's the relationships, it's the experiences, it's the feelings that you haven't yet dealt with that are just sitting here pecking at you, ready to materialize into illness because you haven't actually faced it yet. So this is the
Yeah.
opportunity for you to sit in front of your mirror, eyes closed, you're inside of yourself, and you get to know yourself better, and you train the mind to do things differently, and you reprogram your subconscious to attract and manifest and create the reality that you actually want to live in.
Yeah, and it's so it reminds me of working out because when I worked out, it wasn't. I used to work out at times and think that one or two times, I'd see a life changing difference in my body. But it wasn't until I made it a lifestyle, that then I
Yeah.
began to see a difference in my life. And it's the same thing with meditation. And it wasn't until it became a lifestyle, regular practice, that I began to really see the difference. But also similarly to working out, there was never a workout that I regretted. There's never a
Mm-hmm.
time that you sit in meditation that you come out of that like not feeling empowered and not
Mm-hmm.
feeling in control. And like you said, knowing that we're a sovereign individual every single time. And so that's what drove it to become a regular habitual thing for me, not a religious thing, but something that I regularly do because I know the empowerment that I'm going to feel. I'm never going to regret it. But just like, again, like working out, I've never worked out with a personal trainer. But some people need a personal trainer, and you do personal training basically for meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Are you offering your classes, or are you doing it one on one? How do you coach people through meditations and learn that?
All of the above. I've been trying to work pro bono as much as I possibly can to support the movement right now. So I have been doing a handful of one-on-one. I'm reading these comments too. We're going to get back to you. I've been doing a handful of one-on-one classes. People who I have worked with in the past hit me up, and I'm willing to just carve out 30 minutes to guide you through a class if you need it. Energy work, whenever I do my energy work sessions, I always guide a guided meditation for the first part of the session, which, honestly, about 80% of people kind of phase out. You might call it fall asleep. It's more kind of like in the place
Mhm.
between like being awake and asleep, where you're just feeling
Yeah,
really zenned out. Um, and again, that's the aim of energy work, is to calm all of this down and bring you back to your home frequency, reestablish you in the place where you're just kind of good in your being. And so
yeah.
I'm to answer. You said his name was something
True
different.
man, just true man. We'll
Okay,
go with
we'll
that.
go
We'll
go
go
with that.
with that.
I saw you ask about gut health, and you're absolutely right that that is a huge part of wellness and happiness and feeling good. What I will say is that as soon as you sit into meditation, if your gut is not healthy, it's going to start talking to you. So a meditation is kind of like the source for you to start to recognize where you want to recreate your reality. And so it will tell you, we're going to do work here. You're not even going to be able to sit in meditation for very long. If your tummy is like not happy, it's going to just, that's the first, you're just going to sit with this unhappy tummy. And then, over time you start to recognize, okay, I'm going to work this so I can actually sit and be with myself. Because many people cannot just sit and be with themselves. And it is because their body is screaming at them and they're avoiding it all day because they don't want to go into that. Or, people fear sitting with themselves for whatever reason. They don't know, they fear what's inside of themselves, and that's what's going to come up when you sit with yourself. Going to come up is what's inside of you, and there's nothing to
Yeah,
fear, right? It's all just you and your own personal journey, your own personal evolution, and these are the things that are like, hey, let's heal this, or hey, this is how amazing you are, right? It's all levels that you can reach into yourself when you go into meditation, when you go into energy work. But it's not one thing. Like, so absolutely diet comes into play, and it absolutely will check you if your diet
yeah.
is like not it's not working.
So you constantly, this always comes up every time we talk, or you mentioned it even earlier, is how much you trust our bodies to speak to us. You trust our bodies not only speak to us, but also to even heal itself. So the work that you're doing, it's not necessarily that you're the healer. You trust your own body, the bodies of others, to heal themselves. Like, talk about how you view the body, and your trust in the body, and it makes sense, so much sense as to why you refer to the body. I've heard you just talk about how we're divine beings.
Mhm.
So like talk about that.
Yeah, I think if you think about it this way, when you get a cut, right? You get a cut on your arm, over time it's going to heal itself. We all can agree on that.
Yeah,
And so we know that the body has a capacity to heal itself. I think what has happened in Western medicine in particular is we've hinged our capacity to heal on the external force that is Western medicine, where in Eastern medicine is more about encouraging the body's own capacity to heal itself. And we know it does that, right? Because we've just described that. We figured that part out. But then the question is, how do you start to create that for yourself and work that for yourself and trust, your ability to heal yourself? Because there's a lot of trust that has to go into that. If you're not reaching out here for someone to help you and you're trusting your own ability to heal yourself. Um, and so it's like you build this language, right? And this gets into, frankly, metaphysics. It gets into quantum physics. And in fact, quantum physics describes what I'm talking about as information that vibrates, right? And that's how we know, it's what we know of as vibes. That's what we know of as energy. That's what we know of as intuition. There's this information and it's vibrating. Literally, it's available. Vibratory information is available if you know how to receive that sort of information. And it's your own vibration speaking to you. But again, we spend so much time up here that we're completely disconnected from that. And so it's about
Yeah.
coming back into that and just listening to your being, listening to your body, listening to your own divinity, your own sovereignty, saying, let's make these changes so you can be more powerful, so you can show up as the world needs you to show up and the person that you're here to be. It's not to bypass and stay there. It's to recalibrate, find your home frequency, live from a higher vibrational space, and then have a stronger impact and be more powerful energetically in exactly who you are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You again, you talk about the body in such a positive way. From my background, like being in religion, it was always taught this cold doctrine of depravity, that my human body, my flesh, is what's going to lead me to hell. So it was always
Mm.
it was very difficult for me to get to a place of trusting my body. How do you help people that don't trust their body, who don't view themselves as a divine being, to shift to that? How do you work with people on that?
I mean, I think that is a natural byproduct of doing this work, because when you start to feel, I mean, as an energy worker, it is not that I can do something that you can't. It is that this is my craft and I've spent a very long time working my craft so that I can be an energy input, so that you come to me and when you leave, it's like you've just been battery charged. It feels like you just took 12 naps, right? You feel just
Yeah.
clear and good, rested, like, and it'll just have been like 20 minutes, or whatever, however
Yeah.
long. Um, so the idea is that you learn over time your own capacity, and so you go see a healer, a spiritual healer, a shaman, anybody who works in energy, and they recalibrate you to remember how good life can feel, and then from that space it's just like it's a natural tendency to just know your way back there, or want to get back there, or at least remember the capacity to feel better and recognize that there is this whole organism that is the body, and it is here to help, and it is working in your favor, and it does want you to be great. But you have to then your natural tendency will be like, well, let me tend to this thing a little bit better, right? Let me take better care of it. Because the truth is, if you're feeding your body stuff all day long, that's malnourishment, that's false food, false information, and your body's
Yeah.
just kind of living flagrantly from this space of non-truth. You're operating from a different space. So what this
Yeah.
does is it brings you back to your home frequency, and then you're able to receive the world and receive information in a way that feels more authentic, and you can recognize, oh yeah, this is not a vibe for me, so that's a no, right? And so
Yeah.
you just relearn how to set boundaries so that you can live in your energetic and sovereign power, instead of being attached out here for power. It's just like, this is my power right here. And then anything
Yeah.
that comes into this is either going to feed that or it's not going to work.
Yeah. That's dope. So one, you are an energy worker. So you want to, like you said, when people come to you, you want to be ready to go. Like, boom, I can help you right now. So with that, I mean, you do protect your energy. But even
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't an energy worker, you would naturally do this because that's just the vibe that you want to be on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis. Um, how is it that we can best? What are some practices, I guess, or specifically for you? What are some things that you do that you probably have the liberty to do, but you don't do just because it fucks with your energy?
Watch TV. I don't watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm really selective about who I'm around regularly, just because if
Mm-hmm.
it's not a vibe, then it affects me.
Yeah.
Um, being in big public crowded spaces isn't a vibe for me. And again, this is all just personal to me. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
to
I'm
say
just
that
saying for
when
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 What else? Um, You know, food is a big one for me. Certainly, you know, most of my life is cultivated around my work. And so that means me because I'm the channel for my work. So every decision I make, I realize I'm either choosing to show up in my totality and therefore for my people that I can be that for them, or I'm taking
Mhm.
away from that. So
Yeah.
it's literally everything that I'm ingesting. What am I reading? Who am I around? What am I putting into my body? I don't drink. And I'm not against it at all. In fact, I think it's great. And
Yeah.
I used to, I have some of the best memories of my life, you know, after a night of drinking. But most recently, it's just been like my body's like, that's going to have to go.
Yeah.
So you know, choices like that where it's worth it to me to be able to be in my utmost powerful stance and
Yeah.
help people more powerfully if that is something that has to go
Yeah, and what you're saying is like you said, it's subjective. That's for you.
completely.
One of the things, again, coming from where I came from, a religion, is where somebody was writing a book and told everybody what doesn't work for them and made it an absolute for
Mm,
everybody.
right.
So, and obviously that's where we end up crossing that line. And then now I'm at a point where exactly what you're talking about. I don't do things that fuck up my vibe. Like
Yeah.
plain and simple. Like
Straight
that's
up.
my do's and don'ts. Like if
Hmm.
it drains me of my energy, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, and if it empowers me, then that's a yes. And
Hmm.
again, I don't specifically say those things as rules for everybody else, but they're what I've discovered is best for me. So, what
Absolutely.
about some of those things that actually do empower you, though? That actually do fuel your energy? What are some of those things that works for you?
Yeah, definitely working out, for
Mhm.
sure. Eating well, you
Yoga.
know,
Seeing you doing your
yoga.
yoga stuff.
That's right. You already know.
Yeah.
um, Eating well, you know, I personally eat a vegan diet, but again, I'm not one of those crazy, I don't even like to say that a lot of the times, 'cause I'm not one of those crazy people that believe everything, you know, there's not a one way. Again, like you were just describing, there's no one way. And I think that that's part of um, reeling back from this culture that we've created. We've put people on pedestals and we think, oh, they know the answer, right? The truth is
Yeah.
that everybody can only ever point you in the direction of possible truth for you. And then you'll know whether or not that resonates with you and it doesn't. So, you know,
Yeah.
I can give you all of these ways and you know, will give you more, but I don't ever say like, this is the right way, because when I might say like a vegan diet and someone's like, nope, I definitely need meat, then you figured out, then yeah, you do definitely need meat. Right. And so all I'm
Mhm.
helping you to see is either what I'm saying or it's the opposite of that. And both are valid. Um,
Yeah.
Drinking a lot of water is a really big one. I think if you want to keep your system really clear and keep your energy right. Meditation, again, I meditate both before I go to bed and when I wake up, because that's such like the number one for me.
Yeah.
You know, reading stuff that feeds my spirit, being around people that feeds my spirit.
Mhm.
Nature absolutely is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Those
dope. I
things.
love it. Love it, love it, love it. So we talked before, and I said this before in other episodes and stuff, is that I do believe that one of the ways to change the system is obviously to, I don't think it's obvious, but I think for me, it makes sense to remove those who continue to perpetuate the system and those in power who continue to oppress those, who they want to see oppressed. So the only way, they're not going to rightfully just voluntarily relinquish themselves of their power. So we have to strip them of their power. Yes,
Hmm.
that can be done voting. Now, also, I think the really big thing, though, is to hit them in their pockets, for sure. That
Completely.
always seems to work.
Hmm.
So with that, yes, there's been this big move to highlight Black ownership and minority or women-owned businesses, all of that stuff. Right now, the emphasis is Black businesses.
Right.
What I add to that is also businesses who do support the cause. Like I was telling you, people should support you. I want to support you because you support the cause. You're not going to support the system that keeps people oppressed. So tell freely, I'm giving you a chance, and I'm going to continue to promote you because I believe in what you do.
Thank you.
But what does your business look like, and what is the stuff that you're doing right now?
So yeah, as I mentioned early on, I'm working primarily pro bono right now, donation based, say, and you know, one thing that the virus did for me is shift my story in my head that I was solely powerful in person, because there's you know, everybody who most energy workers do practice both in person and virtually, and I had always believed for myself that I was significantly more powerful in person, and therefore I really never gave virtual a try. So the
Yeah.
virus has forced me to like actually try it and recognize the capacity to exchange energy through,
Hmm.
the online platform. So
Yeah.
right now I've been doing a lot of pro bono virtual sessions. And a session basically looks like I sit down with people because the first level of healing usually comes from talk, right? And so that's why, therapy, of course, is way more accepted than energy work, because we recognize you're talking it out, you're identifying a problem, you're verbalizing it, you're coming up with a solution. In fact, counseling is my background. I started as a counselor before I became an energy worker, and I recognize the capacity for counseling to affect change and to help. So we sit and we talk just kind of through whatever is present. I love you too, Eric. And then from there, the person will just like lay down, get super comfortable, and at that point, I guide them through a meditation. And as I'm going through the meditation, I'm starting my work from here. So I'm just working to kind of open up energetically, clear out energetically, and to open up your field and to reestablish you in your home frequency. And so, like I said, 85% of people during the meditation at some point start to snore,
Honestly.
or like giving some
Yeah.
indication that they're no longer like completely conscious. Um,
Yeah.
and either way, there's not a right way. But then I stop the meditation, and then from there, it's just me kind of holding that energetic space to do this work. So, a session is usually about an hour or so. And like I said, primarily done virtually right now. I mean, if you're in the LA area, we're just kind of on the verge of opening up. So I am able to take clients in person again. But, it's awesome that I can do virtual, because then I can reach way more people, and let other people. Yeah, I think once you have the experience of the work, it's clearer,
Yeah.
its capacity, and so I think it's just a trying it is enough.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
like you said, we're just not used to that. We're used to everything being face to face.
totally.
But I do believe that we're spiritual beings have an earthly experience. And what I'm excited about is that the world has forced us to not be as physical as we used to be. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
concerts or football activities and, all that stuff,
Totally.
sporting events. But that forces us to connect in a different way. And
Hmm.
that forces us to spiritually even still connect. Like, I believe that one of the exciting things, I mean, it's just a little bit weirdness of me, but I was excited, and people might not like this, that churches can't gather because
Mm,
it forces people to still connect spiritually. We're talking about spiritual things, so why do you need a brick and mortar place?
totally.
And to rise above, like take their spirituality to another level
Hmm.
that is beyond what you can see. You're talking
Hmm.
about spiritual things, right? And we're talking
Hmm.
about energy that clearly isn't physical matter, but
Hmm.
everything has energy in it, especially if it has life. So you
Right.
and I have life. We can still connect. We can still have the same energy and same vibe, even though we're not in the same place.
Completely.
So I'm encouraging you for real, nigga. Like I think you're very powerful. Somebody said it earlier too. Most powerful person I ever met. Like continue to just let people know, like to tap in and touch lives, even though you're not physically touching them. And everybody can really get to that point. I talked to my grandma today. Talked to her on the phone. She turned 90 in Panama. And we had such a deep conversation that I felt like she was present with me, which is
Mm,
wild. She's
yeah.
still alive, but she's in
Wow.
Panama.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to talk about something that I think is kind of crazy. But
Hmm.
have you ever brought your presence into somewhere else where you're physically not there?
I think you have experienced me doing that maybe a time or two.
Yeah.
Yes, in short.
How do you do that? How do you show up somewhere where you're physically not there? How do you do that?
I mean, it's about tuning into your own beingness and then placing your beingness in a space that you're familiar with. So, we're familiar with energies of people in particular, but also spaces. So if you're trying to kind of telecommute your beingness
Mhm.
into a
Yeah.
different space, it's not like you're leaving your body necessarily. It's just that you're activating, and this gets so much into quantum physics. In fact, Albert Einstein studied so much of what I'm describing right now. He called it spooky action at a distance, wherein
Hmm.
whenever two particles of being made up of atoms come together, so if you and I have ever shared physical space, that means that our atoms then vibrate collectively in some capacity forever. So no matter where you are in the world, no matter where I am in the world, if my vibration is rising, I'm actually viscerally affecting you. So we know
Hmm.
that Einstein drew that map out. So now we can say, well, if that's the case, then perhaps we can actually even intentionally, consciously activate that relationship. And therefore, that just means that, well, I know that I have this being here. And if I put my being intentionally in the space with you, perhaps I can create that activation by being in your proximity just by my imaginative capacities.
Man, that changed my life when we started talking about that. I don't know, however long ago. My kids, who my heart, like my emotions, everything. My kids don't live here, you know, and it
Yeah.
kills me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel again like when we begin to just trust what the universe is doing, then we begin to find the path that the universe has also created, you know. And so I've also thought and tried to practice this, and I'm waiting for one of my kids to be like, "Hey," or "I feel like you were just hanging out with me," you know, because they're in Atlanta. I got my daughter lives in Nevada, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to work on cleaning myself up, you know, so that I can be so clean energetically that I could just transfer and position myself right in their room, you know. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it I feel like we're heading there as a people. Like one day we're going to be talking about this as regular stuff. Maybe we'll
100%.
not be here anymore, but maybe 2,000, 3,000. Like this will just be regular stuff for us to teleport somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And I really feel we're heading there.
Absolutely.
The people like you, do your work, girl, for real.
Okay.
Do it.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me know really clear how can people connect with you. How can they begin to do sessions, 30-minute sessions, an hour sessions with you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so again, just to put it out there again, I'm working donation based for the movement right now. And, you know, on here, Danika Soleil, on Facebook, at Danika Soleil, on Instagram. I just got on Twitter, so I think I have like a couple of followers there maybe, but primarily Instagram. Instagram, I would say, is my kind of number one social media platform, then Facebook, and now recently added Twitter. So any of those, feel free to reach out. DanikaSoleil.com is my website. There's also contact information there. So you can email me, shoot me a DM. You know, as you know, and as we started this conversation, I'm very, very passionate about this cause. And I think that it's important right now that we start to focus on the solutions, which is
Yes.
self-empowerment and empowerment in particular of the Black community, and recalibrating how our relationship to that community and that community as being all of us and all of ours and all, you know, a part of everything. So, you know, I think that will be the shift, moving away from like all the things that's wrong and that being the focus, to now, well, how are we going to like create sustainable change? And I think the empowerment of self is absolutely the answer to that. So this is the work to kind of take that next level up.
Awesome. Awesome. And I hope you're down to do this again, Danika, because it's super dope. And I think we still have so much more to talk
For
about.
sure.
But I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to fish finish because I couldn't get you on my video. So you're
Okay.
going to have to.
All right.
But make sure you upload it for real.
Okay. Cool. All
All
right.
right, Danika,
Thanks,
appreciate it,
V.
though.
All
Thank you.
right. Bye, everybody.
All right.